Hi there, this is Dara here from Nurture, and in this tutorial I'm going to go through some sessions you can create on Nurture signals, specifically in maths and science context. Okay, now for these sessions we're going to do live quizzes or check for understanding when you're actually doing them live in class. And remember, the purpose of these sessions in Nurture Signal is that you're just maybe teaching a topic in class, and then you might release a check for understanding hinge question to your students for them to quickly answer and see where have your students taken on board the topic you've just taught them. These are supposed to be very quick. You do them in under 30 seconds to a minute in the class itself. But in this tutorial, I'm just going to walk through setting up your first session, or what a sample session for maths and science could look like. So the first example I'm going to show a maths example. So I have this already filled in. So obviously on my display name in here, but in the box about what you want to describe what the session is about, this is your opportunity to essentially put in a bit of a lesson plan, or what you intend to teach in the lesson. Okay. Now, the more detail you put in here, the better. Now, we do limit it up to 1500 characters, but what I found works really well is just put in a couple of basic pieces about the class. So this is a year 7 maths class. The topic is obviously probability. I expect there to be about 26 students of mixed ability. Now, if there was some specific students you wanted to call out, you can add that information in here, that you maybe have certain students with certain difficulty or needs, and it'll tweak the questions based on that. I've added a bit of a learning intention. So for the overall topic, it's to list the sample space for a chance experiment and calculate the theoretical probability as a fraction. And what's important here is the actual subtopics that I'm covering within the lesson. So here we're talking about sample space, theoretical probability, independent trial. So they're the three main concepts I'm trying to get across in this lesson for these students. Now, this is just an example here. I'm going to put this in the description as well if you want to copy it. But as a really good structure for what you can put in this description box, you essentially need to put in what year this class is for, the subtopics within the main topic you're hoping to cover, and it'll generate questions based on that. Okay. So with that in mind, I'm happy for this to generate 3 questions. Now, I can generate up to 20 here, but think about this when you're using this in a class. Are you really going to get to release all 20 questions to people in the middle of a class? Probably not. Again, the purpose of these is just to do a very quick check for understanding after you've taught a topic. Now, I'm happy with all these other settings. This is something I'm preparing for later, so I'm just going to click next. And in the background, it's going to take my description of my lesson plan, and it's going to create 3 effective hinge questions around that plan that I can release at various points throughout the lesson. Okay, so we can see here we have our 3 hinge questions, and I'm actually just going to talk about the second one, because this is the main thing I want to get across here on maths and science is how you can use the specific maths notation features we have. So if you look at the question here, a standard 6-sided die is rolled once. What is the theoretical probability of rolling an even number written in its simplest form? So is it a sixth, 1/3, a half, or 2/3? So the correct answer here is a half. And in the explanation, it says half is correct because 3 of the 6 possible outcomes are 2, 4, and 6, given 3 out of 6, which simplifies to a half. Now, 1/6 only counts a single number, like rolling a 4, so this is a misconception. 1/3 and 2/3 come from incorrect fraction simplification. So again, other misconceptions here. And think back to what makes an effective hinge question. So an effective hinge question is a multiple choice question where you might have 1 correct answer or 2 correct answers, but the incorrect answers are a bit of a diagnostic into the student's thinking and understanding. That can help you understand what students' thinking is when they're making correct or incorrect answers. Now, specifically with notation, let's say if you want to edit any of these, now hopefully by default when it generates these questions for you, the notation is good enough for you to use straight away. But let's say if I want to edit any of these, if I go into edit, you can notice that all of this text looks a little bit odd and not exactly a fraction. But one thing to be aware of in Signal is that we use LaTeX text formatting for subject-specific formatting like maths and science. Now, I would put a link to learn more about LaTeX formatting as well in the description, so it's something you should familiarize yourself with. But essentially, LaTeX formatting, something that gets written like this will preview like this, for instance. Okay, now just to show you, I'll add an answer here, and anywhere we show formatting options, you can click on that, and we'll give you a bunch of options to quickly insert. So let's say if I want to add another fraction, so here I would just click on fraction, and I need to put my two fraction numbers in between the curly brackets. So in this case, I'm going to put 4 out of 6. In this preview here, it'll show me what that should preview as. So it'll say 4 out of 6. Okay. So I'll just leave as is for now. And just some other options is we have obviously superscript, subscript, we have fractions as we've shown, we've square roots, and we have even more options here, such as structures, constants, operators. All of them are here, and once you enter them, you just need to play around with the numbers to ensure that they work. So in this case, it's going to say the square root 3 and final preview like this. So you need to get familiar with LaTeX formatting if you want things to render properly for your students. However, like I said, you would hope that when we generate these questions for you, that we look after the formatting pretty well. Okay, so that is an example for maths. The next example I'm going to show you is science, and I'm going to talk about some other things here as well, specific to how Signal works. So even if you're not a science teacher, it's worth having a look at this here, because I'm going to dive into some more functionality available in Signal too. So in this example, I am doing a lesson on forces and motion. Once again, just thinking back to what works well for me when I'm creating a session. Again, just letting you know what year this group is, what's the overall topic I'm teaching them today. Again, they're mixed ability. I have a bit of a learning intention here for them. And here are the 3 subtopics that I'm hoping to cover in this lesson. So contact and contact forces, balanced forces and unbalanced forces. Okay. Now, once again, I'm going to create 3 questions. I'm just going to prepare it for later. And once again, it should create 3 hinge questions on those subtopics that I've defined in that description. Okay. Now, if you haven't included those subtopics, let's say you just put in, I'm running a lesson on forces, it will generate the questions for you. However, they may not be exactly what you're looking for. They may not be as specific. So it's worth a little bit of time making sure that you give as much information as you can about the lesson you're intending to run. So first question, this is about our contact forces, as we spoke about. This is the next one then is about another one, our forces, and the third one is again about pushing forward with an applied force here. And we've got some of our notation coming into play here in science as well. So I'm not going to cover the notation side here in the science just yet, because again, it's just the LaTeX notation that we use within science. So you just need to familiarize yourself with the various options that we give you. What I do want to cover here is a couple of use cases. So let's say the questions that it came out with, you think a little bit too advanced, not exactly something you want to release to your students. What you can do is you can just click on edit here. Let's say if this question is a little bit too advanced, you can say this question is too advanced for some in the group. And what that will do is it'll rewrite the question into a little bit more of a straightforward version. So we can see here, which of the following is an example of a force that can act through an empty space without physical touch? In this case, it's the one with the magnetic field. Equally, if you feel the questions are not hard enough, you can request that. Now, you can very simply just click on the increase difficulty button or improve choices button or any of these options that you want. And we give you a few more here that will increase that difficulty if you like it. But essentially, when you edit this quiz question, you can use our AI to rewrite them however you like. Okay. Now, in these, we have our correct and incorrect answers, and we have an answer explanation as well. Now, this explanation is not going to show to your students straight away. It's only going to show if you want to show it to them. Okay. Perfect. The second thing I just want to call out is, let's say you actually want more than one correct answer in the options. Once again, I'll just click on edit. And if I click on multiple here, I'll just say
add more than correct option.
Just get it to rewrite it. It's going to rewrite the question with more than one correct option. And that way it becomes a multiple one for my students to be able to use. And this is a really great use case. If we tie this back to course 3 in Nurture Learn, which is everything to do with check for understanding and hinge questions, this is a really good use case to be able to differentiate a question so that the higher achievers in your class might be able to identify that second correct answer more so than students in the middle of your class as well. So a really good one to be able to find the high achievers in your class. Okay, perfect. So that is just some examples on how you can use this for maths and science. Once again, in this example, I've just shown multiple choice based questions because we're trying to communicate the idea of what hinge questions are, and they are multiple choice questions. Now you do have the option to have open answer type questions. I'm going to cover them in a total separate video, because with those we can't exactly determine if the student has understand the correct or incorrect answer, but you can set these up so that students get really good feedback out of them too. But I'll cover that in a separate video. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll put all the prompts into the description as well. And if you have any use cases yourself or examples of good prompts in other subject or other topic areas in maths and science, please let us know. We'd be more than happy to feature them as well.